Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here at 3TG, here to bring another episode of the People's Questions, where I answer, well, the questions that have been sent to me over the past week. And this episode in particular is a little bit interesting because, I don't want to say sadly, because the questions I do have were actually good ones, but for this particular video, we have technically 2 questions. Now, I did have more, but there was like a multitude of things going on in the comment section of the last video. It was like either someone was answering those questions for me, which is a good thing. A few of them were actually talking about that time horse from Devil May Cry 3, which I'm glad a couple people, or like a few people, brought that up. And I looked back and you guys are right. That was kind of the same horse, so thanks for bringing that up. And some of them were a bit odd and therefore I couldn't answer them, or some of them were just a bit too simple, so I just answered them in the comment section. It was a mixture of things. But these 2 questions not only have depth, which is something I like, but they actually require me to actually go more in depth with my answer instead of just giving a 1-sentence line. So that's why I really appreciate these 2 questions in particular. So to jump right into them, the first question comes from, which was actually the first question sent to me, actually comes from Santiago Scarpino, and you want to know, would I rather play a game that was way too easy or one that was hard but unfair? I like this question. Now, I obviously would have to pick, I want the game that is hard but unfair, and I'll tell you why. If a game is too easy, then chances are I'm going to blow through it really, really quickly, and then as soon as I'm done, because I didn't spend a lot of time with it, it's not going to have a lasting impression, which means, I'll probably forget about it in like a day or 2. But a game that is hard but unfair, I think, is something that will require a lot of time. And something like that actually very much is relevant to old school style gaming. For example, back during the 8-bit and 16-bit era, there were plenty of games that, unlike today, where games are designed to be beaten, in which you don't necessarily have to get better at the game in order to progress, that is very much how it was back in the classic era. Something like a classic Mario game. In order to progress, you have to improve. You have to get better. So by our standards, those older games would seem to be hard but unfair, but you have to get better. And I have a lot of respect for those type of games. And the more you progress as a gamer, the more you get better at it, the less unfair it seems. It'll seem unfair and hard at first, but that's because your skill level, your memorization, your ability to react is not on par with what you need in order to progress, and I like that. So that is why, without question, I would pick a game that is hard but unfair, because as time goes on, the game will feel less hard and unfair, and I think once I finally beat it, having spent all these hours, even days, probably weeks, I'll have a much more lasting impression. That's why I would pick that one. And the last question of the episode comes from Phantom Sidious. And this one was my favorite. And you want to know, do I think that the next generation of consoles will abandon discs and switch to digital download only? Well, I already know that Microsoft is releasing a digital only Xbox. I don't know when it comes out, but I'm very scared about that because I very much am an old school style game. If I buy a game, I want to be able to hold it. I'm not a fan of just digital games only. No, don't get me wrong. I do have a few digital games that are like downloaded, but those are only games that are like I already own them on like PlayStation 3 or another console, and therefore I can't take the disc and play them on the current console. But maybe the PlayStation 5 will change that. There's a lot of people who think that that's where we need to go, but I'm just not like that. I mean, there's just so many issues. Because here's the thing: if you remove the disc, who's to say? It limits it. I mean, the reason I like the PlayStation 3 so much is that it can play so many different types of discs. It can play music discs. It can play DVDs. It can play Blu-rays. That's a lot of flexibility. If you remove the disc, then it means that I can't use it to play certain things. I mean, I can't play movies on it. I mean, trust me, I still go out and buy movies. I don't do all my movie buying on just streaming. I very much do, but go out and buy Blu-ray discs for movies that I like and I like to watch them. And if you remove that option, then you pretty much have limited what that console can do. Now, do I think that eventually we might get there? Possibly, maybe within 20 years from now, I could see that. But if we're talking strictly the next generation of consoles, no. I'm hoping that at least Sony, I mean, if Microsoft does it, whatever, because I'm not buying another Xbox ever again. But in terms of Sony PlayStation, I hope they stick with the discs. I still think that there's enough lifespan left, at least for physical copies, because a lot of us, I'm sure, would prefer physical copies. I mean, some people would like to say, well, if you get digital, then you never have to leave your house. But it's just the idea that, data can be corrupted, or there could be something wrong with the connection, because not everyone has internet connections, and you need the internet to play for some of these games, and that just sucks. So, yeah, I hope not. I hope the next generation, at least for PlayStation consoles, is not digital only. Yeah. And that will do it for this particular episode. I'd like to thank everyone that actually sent questions that I answered in the last video's comment section, but I would like to thank the two gentlemen that sent in your questions for this episode, because they were the type of questions that I like to answer, because I like depth. And if you guys hopefully have any questions you'd like me to answer in next week's episode, be sure to type them in the comments down below. But make sure you get them into me before next Wednesday, roughly around noon, before I start filming the next episode. And like always, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you next time.